What's happening, fam? John here from AF Anime, back again with another Dragon Ball Super chapter review, this time for 82, which is titled Bardock Vs Gas. Now, let me go ahead and apologize for this late review, as I was expecting the chapter to come out today on the 20th, when it actually came out a couple days ago on the 18th. So again, sorry about the lateness, but since we don't have another chapter until the 20th of next month, and from what I can tell, the movie has been indefinitely delayed, then I suppose and hope that this video just give you something to do until we get our monthly fix of Dragon Ball Super or any updates on the movie. But I digress. If you guys are familiar with this channel and its content, you'd know that I kind of structure my chapter reviews in a way that starts off with a recap, then has a quick rating, and then a semi-brief discussion about the chapter's contents and what it might mean. So if you guys are familiar with this chapter and your neurons are intact and you don't need any reminders, go ahead and skip forward to this point in the video to get straight into the discussion. But without any further ado, here we go. So chapter 82 picks up where the last one left off, and it would appear that the battle of instant teleportation is still continuing between Goku and Gas. Now, we get about 10 pages of this, of Goku and Gas jumping from place to place, planet to planet, and the fighting, even though it's still there, has definitely been tapered down in comparison to the last chapter. But for the 10 pages that we do get this bouncing around, we get a handful of callbacks to previous arcs and characters such as the Galactic Patrol, their prisoners, and even Manga for a short period of time. Now, if you need a refresher or a reminder, Manga is a delivery driver who is fairly weak, but Beerus lied about in terms of his strength in order to get Goku motivated for that Universe 6 tournament. I mean, ultimately, we don't actually get a confirmation that this character is Manga. It could just be someone of the same race, but given the callbacks in this chapter, and considering that he's either delivering or dropping off this dirt or manure or whatever it is, it would be probably fairly safe to say that this is in fact Manga. And we even get a short appearance from the Galactic King himself in a couple panels, and this goes on for a bit, and if you didn't realize already, Vegeta makes it clear that Goku is really just doing this to stall for time and not so much to flex his instant transportation abilities. Now, as I said, they do bounce around a lot, but one location they do actually spend a good amount of time at is the Galactic Prison, where we are treated to a little bit of backstory and a little bit of comedy. To be more specific, there are two characters who recognize Gas as soon as he shows up and recognize his growth. And as they refer to having some kind of history with Gas, they then proceed to offer to help him if he releases them. And then he kind of turns his nose up and throws some shade in their direction by referring to them as dregs. Naturally, they didn't take too kindly to being turned down or referred to in that way, so they started throwing shade back at Gas to much comedic effect. They point out and recall the very first time they ever met Gas, and the fact that he was so scared that he wet himself. Gas then retaliates by claiming that he didn't wet himself, just a few droplets leaked out because he had been holding it for so long. And after Goku hears this, he does confirm that technically, yeah, that means you pissed yourself. I mean, that's all fun and laughs, but these two characters in the form of Yumba and Zou Yogi being present in this chapter and having the dialogue that they did might actually imply something a little more important that I'll talk about during the discussion. But for now, we'll go ahead and move on. So after they teleport out of the Galactic Prison and to another random planet, we get a little bit of dialogue between Goku and Gas, where Goku gets the opportunity to kind of feel out the relationship between Gas and Elec. And the callbacks continue as we do get a reference to Raditz in this chapter, and in doing so we also get Goku doing something that's a little bit out of character, where he kind of tries to sow the seeds of mistrust between Elec and Gas, where he tells Gas to watch his back since his own brother in the form of Raditz tried to kill him not too long ago. And off jump, this could just be Goku stalling for time, but there is the small chance that this could actually be a form of foreshadowing. As I said in a previous chapter review, that Gas doesn't really give me the vibe of a character who either deserves to die or deserves to be blown away with a Kamehameha. He actually does have some redeeming qualities within his personality, whereas Elec has only been getting less and less likable throughout this arc. So there is a chance that this could be foreshadowing or even confirm my theory that Elec either has or eventually will use the Dragon Balls to make himself the strongest in the universe and ultimately become the big bad of this arc. I mean, to really sell that point home, just after this conversation is finished, we get a few panels of Elec deciding to take the opportunist route to finish off Vegeta, Manito, and Granola, who are all half dead. But before that situation could be concluded, we get back to the fight with Goku and Gas, who are now back to using instant teleportation again. And we can see that Goku is starting to feel the pain from being on the defensive throughout most of this fight. And right as Gas catches up to Goku on this galactic patrol ship, Goku catches on to another key signature and then instantly teleports to it, and this is where we get the first twist of this chapter. And that key signature belongs to Whis, who is in the Universe 7 realms doing Whis type things, namely having a dessert on a random planet. So as Goku and Gas appear in front of Whis, who is kind of just minding his own business, Goku then shows off his growing intelligence by using instant teleportation to completely backtrack every location that he had been to and then arrive on planet Cereal. So I guess this not only shows a small bit of growing intelligence within Goku, it also shows that he was absolutely right in flexing his instant teleportation against Gas. He truly is better at it, as backtracking all of those key signatures all the way back to the planet Cereal is not something that Gas could even remotely hope to do. So naturally, Gas asks Whis for help, and Whis obliges, tells him the exact direction that planet Cereal is in, and then it's off to the races, flying through space for Gas. Meanwhile, Goku shows up back on planet Cereal just in time to stop Oil and Maki from finishing off Granola and Minato. And I just love this panel right here because it kind of gives off the impression that if it had dialogue, what it would say is, I may not be able to beat your brother, but you two can absolutely catch these hands. Moving on though, if you take a look at these two panels right here, something should be very telling about the Heater clan. As we can see from Oil and Maki and their general expressions, they seem a bit concerned for their brother, whereas Elec actually just seems annoyed that Goku returned first. I mean, ultimately it is just an expression from Elec seeing Goku's arrival, but at the same time it does still vibe with the whole irredeemable factor that I've been saying has been growing on this character for the past 5 or so chapters. Anyways, moving on, we do get these 3 interesting panels between Whis and the Oracle Fish about Gas's departure and even his identity, so I can't really tell if this is supposed to lead into something important considering the Oracle Fish's role in Dragon Ball Super so far. This could honestly just be page filler though, just to fill up the page before we bounce back to planet Cereal. And when we do get there, we can see that Goku has scooped up Granola, and the goggle that has now apparently turned itself into a robot has scooped up a half-dead Vegeta, and they are off to Minaito's place. And while Goku and company are en route, Maki asks Elec if they should take off their restraints and chase after them, but Elec wisely says that the two of them could never take Goku, so they should just wait on Gas to return. However, at the same time, while Goku was in the car, they do get a page from Whis, who slipped a device onto Goku, which is more or less a handheld video calling device. And for about a page and a half, we really just get a bunch of exposition about Gas and his destination, as well as the amount of time it's going to take him to arrive, which is 20 minutes. But we do get some more important dialogue from Whis towards the end of their conversation about Goku's progress when it comes to Ultra Instinct. And the most important line from that dialogue is from Whis, where he asks Goku, "Who are you really?" So they eventually reach Minaito's crib, who has a gift sitting aside for Goku, and that is the passing down of Bardock's scouter to his son. And Vegeta, who is the most experienced person there with the scouter, tries to get it to work, but says that it's malfunctioning, but does acknowledge that there is an audio recording on there. And right in line for some good plot convenience, Oatmeal has the ability to tap into the circuitry and play the audio directly with their speakers. And once the audio is connected, Goku and company hear Bardock's voice ringing out, and what they do hear is him telling Minato and Granola that you two need to stay alive. And this line triggers something within Goku, where he has a quick moment of a flashback from what we can tell. And I don't know if this is just a creative artistic flashback look, but I think the eye designs for Goku here are very interesting. But I'll have more on that during the discussion. For now, we'll move on, as Goku has this mental image of his parents wishing him well from the inside of his ship. We are treated to this panel here, which kind of indicates that Goku may be going through some form of a transformation or some kind of energy boost. I honestly can't tell what they want us to think, but it's at this point here where we actually get the title of the chapter dropped, Bardock vs Gas. And ultimately this flashback doesn't really encompass a whole lot for this chapter. It really just kind of serves as a setup for the next one, as we can see some interesting fighting going on and a good amount of action and some impressive work from Gas and Bardock all together. But ultimately nothing's decided. We just get the one line of dialogue that we already heard previously in the chapter. So this chapter ends with Gas declaring that he's going to go ahead and get this victory because he needs to, for the sake of not letting his brother down. And that is going to do it for the recap. I guess now we can go ahead and get on to the ratings before the discussion. And I'm going to give this chapter an 8.5 out of 10. Ultimately, there are some really cool things going on in this chapter. I just felt like it could have been structured or organized a little bit better. And my main qualm there is that I really felt like the Bardock vs Gas title should have been used for an entire chapter dedicated to Bardock vs Gas. I mean, they could have used the whole Scouter thing as the first couple pages of the next chapter, and then just, you know, had an entire 30 or 40 page going with the fight. But ultimately, that's not the route they took. I can't complain too much. I still enjoy this chapter, but it's just not going to be a perfect 10 despite the animation being fairly good throughout the entirety of the chapter. So now on for some general discussion, and the first topic I want to talk about for this chapter is actually going to be about the title, which I think really just doesn't fit this chapter. Now, when it comes to the instant teleportation technique and them using it for the ending of last chapter all the way into the majority of this chapter, they could have just separated it and had one chapter specifically dedicated to the instant transmission and the callbacks to all the old characters like Jacko, Monaka, and everyone else. They could have just condensed that into one chapter and then actually had a chapter specifically about Bardock vs Gas. So it just kind of makes me think that maybe Akira Toriyama and Toyo Taro might just be terrible at naming chapters. I mean, I suppose that's just my own personal thoughts on that. But the next thing I want to talk about are these two characters right here, Yumba and Zou Yogi. And at first I thought these two characters appearing was just a fun callback to some of the characters of the Galactic Bandit Brigade. But then I was reminded of something by my friend Mark a few chapter reviews ago, where he mentioned that 7-3, the character who introduced us, or the remains that kicked off this whole arc, have just been quietly not talked about. And 7-3 was a member of these two guys and their crew. So it's making me think that their past, or at least their past interactions with the Heater clan, might have something to do with 7-3. And I can't help but think that 7-3, it wasn't just a plot device to get, to connect these two arcs, but rather 7-3 might be important to this story still, especially when it comes to Alec and whatever he plans to do that's outside of Gas just being powerful and beating everyone up. So I don't expect to see a whole lot from these two characters in particular, but I do think that the dialogue that they had in this chapter was more than just comedy. We might need to actually look into it a little bit deeper and speculate there as to what that meeting was about and if it was related to 7-3. Food for thought, I guess. There is another point of discussion I want to talk about in this chapter, just really quick, and that is these three panels right here between Whis and the Oracle Fish. I mean, like I said before, this could just be filler, but I can't help but think that Whis' response here seems a bit out of place if it is just filler. I mean, if the Oracle Fish is the character who pretty much set off the events of Dragon Ball Super by tipping off, Beerus about Goku or the legendary Super Saiyan, but how is the Oracle Fish not aware of who Gas and the Heater clan is? Or is it possible that the changes that were made with the Dragon Balls might actually mean something for the Oracle Fish, Whis, or even Beerus? I mean, I don't have any deeper trains of thought there, but another interesting thing about Whis in this chapter is the fact that he asked Goku in regards to his Ultra Instinct training, who are you deep down really? And if you look at the very next couple panels, you see Goku's shocked response, and then the very next panel after that is Minato calling Goku, hey, son of Bardock. And this is incredibly interesting to me because it kind of runs congruent with Vegeta's Ultra Ego form, where it's more about self-acceptance and just kind of, knowing who and what you are and embracing it to get this, Ultra form. And if the coming to understand his own father and his place as a Saiyan ties into Goku's ability to fully access Ultra Instinct, I think that is actually a pretty good writing technique by Akira or Toyo, whoever is responsible for it. And this could kind of be a little bit of a retcon if Whis is saying that Ultra Instinct is basically specific to each and every character who accesses it, and that would be okay for multiple reasons. It might just mean that if there's Saiyans or other characters who access this Ultra Instinct form, that it wouldn't just necessarily represent itself as having silver hair or silver eyes, or just replicating what we've seen with Goku but with other characters. And we can see from this panel here that after Goku hears Bardock's voice and is triggered in some way, shape, or form by that memory, there's some kind of weird energy thing going around him. Now, I know this is a manga which is based off of, Japanese anime and manga type material, so it could just be this is a general shock to Goku, but I do think that this is a representation of some form of ki and might actually be an indicator that he's unlocking Ultra Instinct or some new version of Ultra Instinct that's based around himself accepting himself as a Saiyan and not so much as an Earthling. So I guess I'll probably do another video of that in the very near future. The last point of topic is going to be about the flashback, or the small flashback that we get within the context of this chapter, and ultimately we don't get a whole lot of information or anything really new to understand. We do get some impressive fight panels, and this clearly is something that I do want to see animated at some point in time. It's just, I still feel like this chapter could have just focused more on the whole bouncing around the galaxy thing and not, working the title card into, the last quarter of the chapter, just so they can show us this brief flashback with scant amounts of dialogue. And I stand by what I said in the past handful of reviews, where I said that I do not like the way they're breaking up this flashback, and maybe in the future when they finally do animate this thing, it might actually put the entire flashback into one cohesive story. But looking back on this arc, it's one thing I will say for sure that definitely rubbed me the wrong way, is how they're breaking up this flashback into small pieces within multiple chapters. But I digress. That is actually going to do it, you guys, for my discussion for this chapter. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed this content and want to see more like it, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you guys want to comment down below about this chapter, any ideas you guys have about this possible link to Bardock and Goku's Ultra Instinct form, or just anything Dragon Ball related in general, I am definitely here for you guys. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for tuning in.